Today we're in front of the mural in the Trade Center that represents probably the Creek way of life around the mid-1700s, maybe 1725, 1750, perhaps a little bit later. This mural was painted by Anderson Luster, and Pete Dunaway and his wife Denise and their sons are the ones that actually kind of built this exhibit to look like it does, to show this is the Creek Indian way of life, you know, right as they're meeting the Europeans. So their life is changing a little bit because you have two different kinds of peoples or cultures coming together and they're exchanging goods and ideas. This is a Creek Indian village that's representational of what a principal town would be. And there are certain things in this mural that you're going to see that provide clues as to the time period and who these people are. For instance, we know this is a principal town because of the 4 square buildings that are in the mural here. And only the principal towns would have the buildings like that. And a principal town is kind of like the county seat. There's a lot of other towns, but this is the one where if they're going to do government business or they're going to decide on things that affect all the people, it's going to happen here. One of the things you have on this mural is you can see this style of their houses. This one where you see the poles and there are just bamboo strips. What looks like bamboo. It's actually natural native river cane from Alabama. And they would lay these things side by side so you could lay down on it and sit in. There are no walls on this structure. It's almost like having a picnic pavilion and then you've got benches inside. It's hot in Alabama, as it's beginning to get hot now. You don't want any kind of breeze to stop because you're already pretty hot. But we also have something like behind this buckskin. This house is a winter house. We know it's a winter house because number one, it's got walls to keep out the wind and the rain. And in the middle, there's a hearth where they had a fire to keep it warm during the winter months. So you would live in both of these places seasonally. And if you're a Creek Indian of this time period, you might have had both houses side by side. So everybody knows, oh, that's where, you know, John lives. Well, he's got a summer house and a winter house right next to each other. The roofs, they could have had wood slats like this, but most likely it was palmetto branches. You can get palmetto branches from anything. You put them up on here green and you layer them just like we layer the wood slats or tiles of our houses today. And that's going to keep the rain off. And we know that the Indians would actually color their houses or put stripes or drawings or paintings. And on this one we have the outline of a turtle. It might have been the house of the turtle. The Creeks have different clans, families, where they've grouped themselves into like extended families and groupings, and they call themselves the Wolf Clan, the Wind Clan, the turtles, the deer, a lot of different ones. A lot of the Indians in the Southeast did that. So we know this is in the 1700s because there are different items, trade goods that the Indians have that they did not have before meeting with the Europeans. And the Europeans that have come around are the French and the Spanish and the British. You'll see some of these people are wearing linens and not just clothing made out of plant fibers or either leather from deer or rabbit or beaver. And those linens were trade goods from the British. And the Indians loved the different colors because the colors of pure white and blue and red did not show up in nature. They had a lot of browns and maybe yellows and oranges, but that's why you see these people there in their preferred colors of their linen cloths, the clothing that they wear. Some of them are wearing sashes, some of them are wearing headbands, some of them are wearing shirts. They even have little ties around their waist and at their knees. These are all things that are replacing what the Indians had used before. The Indians, if they had any kind of metal, it was copper and it was pounded. But when the Europeans show up, they are smelting iron ore. They're melting it and they're making iron. They're making tin, they're making bronze, brass. This is all something new to the Indians. But these kinds of items, when they see them, they really want them because it makes life easier. Previously, and during this time also, as you can see in the mural, the Indians have pottery, which is made out of clay, which works, but if you drop it, it breaks. If I drop that kettle, the worst that's going to happen is maybe I'm going to drop it on my foot. It's not going to break. The other metal that we see and we know is existing, besides the lead bullet for the muskets, are bells and earrings. And this is one of the things that the Indians really loved, the sound of something like wind chimes, just light tinkling. And so they had a lot of earrings, and they would wear bells on their pant legs. And so they would jingle when they walked. All right, so some of the Indians have purchased the muskets for hunting. It makes it easier to kill the deer. They purchased those muskets with deer skins, like this. This is a buckskin. This particular example has a bullet hole, and we know it's a bullet because it's round. And one of the things I always talk about kids is we call this a buckskin. And you might go to an English trader and say, you know, I want a horse. How much is that going to cost me? And he's going to say something like 75 buckskins. I want an iron kettle. Well, that's going to be 12 buckskins. So you know you have to have 12 finished products of deer hides. So one of the things that we know is you think about the buckskin, and we started calling it a buck because that was short. And that is exactly what this is. When people say it's a buck, it'll throw you all the way back in the historical reference of a buckskin. They still had parts of their previous life way before the Europeans in existence. For instance, they would have had gourds, which you can eat, but also you can use them for drinking. But a lot of the Indians also they're making baskets, and they're all different kinds of shapes. They're for gathering food or they're for holding food. They might have actually carried it with them into the woods, picking up nuts, and then they bring them back, hickory nuts and walnuts especially, and acorns, and they're going to bring them back and they're going to process them, or what we say, make them into food. First you got to break the shell, so you've got these big heavy round rocks, and you take them in your hand and you beat on acorn and hickory nuts to break the shell, and then you actually grind up the nut meat. You're not going to eat them like we do pecans, and you can make a flour or paste out of that or add it to whatever it is you're cooking. So they have, say they're growing corn. Indians grew lots of corn. Corn is from Mexico, and then it made its way up into Alabama in the southeast and then all through the US. It's not European. And this is one of the things that the English and the British and the French wanted too. It's food. One way that they would make it into corn flour or corn meal is to pound it. This is a hollowed out tree trunk, and you get another big branch or trunk that's heavy, and you're going to be doing this, and you start to break up the corn and smash it and make it into flour. You can kind of see a little bit. You also see kids or men are playing. They had games, and one of the games we refer to, and Greeks refer to it as stickball. Stickball is one of those games, it's kind of like playing lacrosse and hockey and football all at once, but it does have a goal. And the sticks are much like the lacrosse sticks, something like this. And there's a little leather ball about the size of a ping pong ball. And the aim of the game, the goal, is to carry that ping pong ball like you do in lacrosse. You're running with it in there. You can't use your hands, and fling it up. And what you want to do is hit this 25-foot high pole that's got, in this instance, a fish on the top. And when you hit the fish, it's a point. That takes a lot of skill. It's something that a lot of Creek Indian towns would play against each other. It's similar to Auburn playing Alabama in football. You pick another town maybe and you say, hey, we want to play you in stickball. These games could be pretty violent. They could also last for an hour. They could last for days. It depends on what's going on. One of the other things we know, and we have an example here, is of course there's music. I am not good at playing the flute, but all you have to do is cut a piece of river cane and put the holes in it, and then you can make your own music. See, I'm not good.